Hello, this is Karen, and today we are going to talk about stress mindsets. So, when we talk about mindsets, our mindsets are really just a way of viewing the world or the lens through which we see certain events. So, when we talk about a stress mindset, that is a set of beliefs about the consequences of experiencing stress in our lives. So we can either view stress as something that is positive and is going to enhance our lives and make us stronger in the long run, or we can view it as something that's going to be awful, that we're not going to be able to handle, and is going to be something that fills us with dread. So an example of a stress mindset we can see in the lead singer of Duran Duran, Simon Le Bon. He was recently interviewed on the SmartLess podcast, which, if you're not familiar with the SmartLess podcast, is Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett started a podcast a few years ago. They interview very famous people, and it's just kind of a more casual conversations. And they talk a lot about things like health and mindsets and things like that that famous people use when they're being the famous people that they are. So Simon Le Bon was on their podcast, and they asked him about his fear and anxiety about going on stage. He's been pretty vocal through the years about having some mental health struggles. And what he said is that he has reframed his fear into just seeing it as adrenaline. And his quote was, "It's not fear, it's adrenaline. It's just your mind and your body preparing you to do something extraordinary. And you will do something extraordinary." So he has reframed something that could be absolutely terrifying, going on stage in front of gajillions of people, into something that is a positive, and he sees it as an extraordinary experience that he's going to have. And that those nerves and that fear and the dread that you might have about whatever the thing is that's coming up can be reframed into something truly positive. If you don't know who Simon Le Bon is, or these other fellows in this picture with them, please Google them, please Spotify them. I am optimistic that most people know the very famous Duran Duran, but if you don't, listen to one of these songs. They're great. Their first album came out in 1981. Yeah. So Simon Le Bon's use of stress as an asset is a perfect example of our mindset one. The one way we can look at stress is as an asset. It is something that is going to encourage us to be adaptable. It's going to improve our performance and make us more resourceful. We might even work a little bit harder with that little nudge of that anxiety or that fear in us. We are going to notice our resilience when we use stress as an asset. We are going to build deep health and fitness to continue handling the stress, because we're going to recognize that this is an extraordinary thing that's coming up, and we are going to need all of our energy to get through this extraordinary thing. So we are going to put more of a priority on our deep health and our fitness when we are really seeing stress as something that is positive in our lives. And then when we are confronted with a new stress, we're going to believe that we are capable of rising to this challenge. We're going to do the extraordinary thing. We know we can do the extraordinary thing because if we dig deep in ourselves, we have confidence, and we know we can get through these things because we've gotten through 1,000 other stressful things before. So our second type of stress mindset is seeing stress as harmful. So the slide before showed a cute little puppy. I always like to think of puppies as my example of stress as an asset or good stress, because as we know, if you've had a puppy or a kitten, they are a lot of work and they are a lot of stress for a while, but then they ultimately become your best friend and bring so much joy to your life that you endure that stress because you know you are getting something so valuable out of this. As Simon Le Bon said, something extraordinary. So when we view stress as harmful, then we tend to respond to stress in ways that make us less resilient and more at risk to negative effects of stress. We focus on how bad we feel, and we focus on how bad we think we are, right? We internalize it. We look for failures. We look for distress. We look for all the ways that we suck and all the ways we could potentially suck or screw up, whatever this thing that's coming up is going to be. So we also then fear the future and what could happen because we just don't trust ourselves to deal with it. And finally, we avoid those situations. We avoid situations that are stressful or could be scary because we just don't want to do it. We know it's going to be awful for us. And by avoiding those situations, we just don't grow and we don't get better and we don't take risks and we don't go out and do the things that we need to do to make ourselves be strong. So if you don't believe me that the way you view stress is important and can be an asset to you and your overall well-being, I want you to look at the study. The study was conducted by two psychiatrists one is at University of Tennessee and one was at Clemson. They took a look at how viewing stress as a badge of honor influences productivity, relationships, and health. So a lot of people, professional people, people in law school, graduate school, any kind of high achieving place, often see stress as a badge of honor and wear it as such. Like, I'm so stressed out, and that's because I care so much about my job, and I'm so good at my job that I am super stressed all the time. I am doing things to make myself super stressed all the time so that I can be the best at my job. So we talk about it. We have competitions about how much our stress is impacting our lives. I call them the My Life Sucks-a-thons. And when we are doing that, however, the interesting thing is that we are seeing stress as a positive characteristic in ourselves. And that is leading some people to actually strive under those conditions. However, that does not let those of us who are overachievers, hard workers, and people who own their stress and say, I'm stressed and I am badass because I'm so stressed. That does not let you off the hook for your recovery. As we'll see in a minute, there's 4 different types of this kind of mindset, and they all manifest in different ways. And the one that is truly harmful for us is the one that's called relaxation remorse. So there are 4 different ways that the stress as a badge of honor manifests itself. The one I really want to focus on is the relaxation remorse, because this is the one that has turned out to be, in the studies that they've done, has shown to be the most damaging to people who view their stress as a badge of honor. Relaxation remorse is the discomfort and guilt someone might feel when they're not stressed, when they're at home. So if they take time, so they don't take time off work, they don't put their phone on do not disturb, they don't do any of those things that we need to do to recover from stressful events in order to maintain our lifestyle and use stress actually as an asset in our lives. So that's the one area where people who use their stress as a badge of honor and really own their stress to be great professionals, where they fall down. Because we have to remember that we always need to be recovering from our stress and treating ourselves with kindness so that we can continue going. The other 3 are stress as an achievement. This is when someone sees their workload as a sign of their own importance. Stress-related social comparison. This is when somebody is comparing their workload to others and making themselves feel better because they have such a high workload, so they must be super important people, and they are basically, beating all their friends. They're winning at brunch, right? And then stress-related impression management that's when someone attempts to believe that their image of themselves is as a hard worker. So that when we are projecting an image as a hard worker in society, and we think that the people around us are going to value us more because of that. So our stress mindset, and if we are thinking about our stress as an asset, as something that's going to make us stronger in life, this leads to our resilience. Right? So resilience is the ability to successfully tolerate and recover from stress and traumatic events. When we practice our stress mindset, it helps us be more resilient and more open to change and more able to adapt to new things that are going to come up in our lives, new stressful events we know we're going to have or that we don't know we're going to have. It just helps us deal with stress better in the long run, which is the flip side of stress is resiliency, right? So we want to strive for that. We want to try to be more resilient. We want to be able to rebound from our setbacks. We want to persist and endure our setbacks, and we want to learn from our setbacks. So those are all things that go into resilience, and that is how viewing stress as something to learn from, as something positive, as something that's building strength and character is really going to help us in the long run. So we all know that changing our mindsets sometimes is not just like flipping a switch, right? We know that that can take some work. And that's not as easy as just saying, okay, today I'm going to see my stress as an asset and not as a negative, and I'm going to go out there and crush the world, right? It doesn't happen just like that. So here are some strategies to work towards a positive stress mindset. We can come up with a list of our stressors that we know we're going to have or know we have had, and we can write down what we think we can learn from them. We can reframe them ahead of time so that we are more prepared to go into the stressors or the thing that's coming up with the right attitude in mind. We can imagine our top 3 stressors that are going to come up this week, which we know we're going to have because we're always going to have them or because we know we have things scheduled. And then we can think about them ahead of time and think about how we're going to react to them, how we're going to tackle them. We can visualize ourselves succeeding at the stressful thing. All of those things, as silly as they sound and as little as they sound, add up over time to really help our brains start to think this way. And then we can journal about something that happened in the past, or just think about it or talk about it with a friend or family member and identify positive things that came out of that, right? So whatever it might be. So maybe you went to a hearing at court, or you had a presentation you had to make to coworkers at work, and it was a very stressful thing and you were very stressed out about it, but it went great and you had a good outcome and you had good positive feedback from it, and you felt empowered and you felt strong and you felt really good about yourself. So you can think back about those things and kind of make a mental checklist of the things that went well so that you can then project those onto the things that might be coming up. So our stress mindset takeaways are that our stress mindset matters, as we can see. Small efforts can lead to big improvements. Like I said, they sound silly, they sound little, but those types of things that we just talked about can really help us build up our stress mindset and how we think about stress and our overall resiliency. And we can experiment with different strategies for long-term changes. We know this is going to require some practice, and we know that some things may work better for some of us than others. So it's really trial and error. It's really just trying to see what happens and hoping for the best, right? So as always, hit me up with any questions, any concerns, anything you want to talk about. I am here for all of it. And go listen to some Duran Duran and work on your stress mindset. All right, happy week, and we'll see you soon.